ICE agent involved in this week's shooting in Minnesota shows the threat the officer was facing.
Wednesday, January 7th, 2026, 9:30 a.m.
No! No! Shame! Shame!
It was the shot heard around the Midwest. An ICE agent, cornered during a protest, fires 3 rounds into a vehicle charging toward him. The driver, a 37-year-old woman, is dead on the scene.
Vice President J.D. Vance reacted to this new video on X, saying, "Many of you have been told this law enforcement officer wasn't hit by a car, wasn't being harassed, and murdered an innocent woman. The reality is that his life was endangered and he fired in self-defense."
The city is a powder keg. Protesters are already flooding Cedar Riverside. But while the news choppers are circling the shooting, they are missing the real story happening 10 miles south. Because that traffic stop wasn't an accident. It was the trigger for the largest federal crackdown in Minnesota history. And the target isn't a street dealer. It's a man sitting in a federal courthouse, wearing a black robe, and he just lost his diplomatic cover.
That my administration will focus on ending the absolutely horrific practice.
The clock just ran out for 700 people. And for one judge, the game is over. While the cameras are fixated on the shooting downtown, the real war is silent. 10 miles away, at a 14-story hotel looming over Interstate 494, Operation Metro Surge goes live. This isn't a random sweep. Intelligence indicates that the entire 7th floor has been booked for 6 months straight, paid for by a shell company registered to a P.O. box in Mogadishu. At 4 a.m. sharp, the command is given. Agents cut the power to the elevators. Stairwells are flooded with tactical teams. They move floor by floor, methodically locking down exits. When they breach the 7th floor, they don't find tourists. They find a command center. Room 712 is the nerve center. Agents kick in the door to find 3 men frantically feeding documents into a shredder. But they aren't fast enough. Inside the drop-ceiling tiles, investigators pull down duffel bags, heavy with cash, 50s and 100s, bundled in rubber bands. But the cash is secondary. The real prize is in the adjoining suite, a passport printer. Hundreds of blue U.S. passports are stacked on the bed, all freshly printed, all featuring faces of people who entered the country days ago. This isn't just a hideout, it's a factory for new identities. By sunrise, 236 foreign nationals are zip-tied in the lobby. But as the sun rises, the operation hits a snag that agents didn't plan for. The neighborhood is waking up. News of the raid spreads via encrypted apps, and within minutes, a crowd forms outside the hotel perimeter. This is where the sanctuary policies of Minneapolis collide head-on with federal force. Local police, bound by city ordinances restricting cooperation with ICE, stand back, refusing to assist with crowd control. The atmosphere turns volatile. Bottles and rocks begin to rain down on the federal transport vans. A standoff ensues in the hotel parking lot. On one side, federal agents in full tactical gear, holding the line. On the other, angry residents and activists chanting that the raid is illegal, emboldened by the earlier shooting. It's a chaotic scene, but inside the command van, the lead agent ignores the noise outside. He is staring at a seized laptop from room 712. The encrypted chats aren't discussing border crossings. They are discussing billing cycles. The investigation takes a sharp turn from immigration enforcement to white-collar crime. The laptop reveals a massive spreadsheet titled Project Nutrition. It links the 236 people in the lobby to a network of non-profit food banks and daycare centers across Minnesota. The scheme was simple but devastating. Use the fake identities created in this hotel to bill Medicaid and the federal food program for millions of meals that were never served. The total theft? An estimated $18 billion. And at the top of the spreadsheet, listed as the overseer, is a name that makes the blood run cold in the Department of Justice. It isn't a gang leader. It is the Honorable Khalif Nurulmi, a sitting federal judge in the District of Minnesota. The man responsible for signing the warrants is the same man running the fraud. The laptop in room 712 was just the map. The actual territory was far deadlier. As forensic teams cracked the safes in the hotel suites, the narrative shifted again. They didn't just find cash. They found kilos of uncut cocaine wrapped in carbon paper and bags of blue fentanyl pills pressed to look like prescription painkillers. This wasn't street-level dealing. This was the currency. The investigation revealed a terrifyingly efficient pipeline. Drug money from cartels in Mexico and Colombia was used to finance the smuggling routes that brought undocumented immigrants into Minnesota. Once here, those individuals were given fake identities printed in the hotel and used as ghost employees for the Medicaid fraud scheme. And guarding this entire ecosystem were two untouchable figures operating in plain sight. The first was Judge Khalif Nurelme, the overseer, inside the federal courthouse. The second was Hoden El-Nur, a high-profile immigration attorney. She was the fixer. For 10 years, she ensured that any foot soldier in this operation who got arrested was back on the street within hours, their legal fees paid by shell companies and their cases assigned to favorable judges. They had built a perfect, closed loop of corruption, protected by the very people sworn to dismantle it. But the chaos at the hotel and the termination of temporary protected status had spooked the leadership. The wiretaps went wild. At 8 a.m., a federal alert triggered. Judge Nurelme and Attorney Nur had just booked last-minute, one-way tickets to Nairobi via Dubai, departing Minneapolis St. Paul International. Agents had 27 minutes to get across town through morning rush hour traffic. This wasn't a tactical raid with flashbangs. This was a race against escape velocity. At 8:27 a.m., the judge and the attorney were sitting in the Delta Sky Club, sipping coffee, believing they were minutes away from freedom. They never saw the team of plainclothes U.S. Marshals approach. There was no shouting, no dramatic struggle, just a quiet tap on the shoulder, the flash of a badge, and the cold click of steel cuffs beneath their expensive suit cuffs. The untouchables had just been touched. The head of the snake was cut off, but the body was about to violently thrash across 6 states. With the overseer and the fixer in custody, the federal blackout order is lifted, revealing the terrifying scale of the morning's offensive. What looked like a local raid at the hotel was actually just one coordinate on a massive digital map. At 4 a.m., simultaneous to the Minneapolis breach, Operation Metro Surge had ignited across 5 other states: Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and Michigan. 1,200 federal agents were moving in unison. This wasn't a police action, it was a regional purge. In Chicago, the resistance was violent. A heavily fortified warehouse used to repackage the fentanyl saw a 30-minute firefight. Enforcers barricaded the loading dock, trading fire with SWAT teams using military-grade automatic weapons. By the time the smoke cleared, 9 cartel enforcers lay dead, and 2 federal agents were being medevaced with gunshot wounds. The seizures were staggering. In a farmhouse in rural Iowa, agents uncovered a bunker containing 3 tons of narcotics and an arsenal of unregistered firearms destined for the Twin Cities. In Detroit, they seized a shipping container filled not with auto parts, but with shrink-wrapped pallets of cash, totaling $40 million. The network that Judge Nurelme had protected wasn't just a fraud ring. It was a logistics empire that rivaled Amazon in efficiency, moving death and money across state lines with impunity. As the dust settles over the Midwest, the true cost of the Minneapolis connection begins to emerge. It takes federal accountants weeks to untangle the web. The final tally is horrifying: $18 billion stolen from taxpayers, diverted to fund a shadow war on American streets. The human toll is even higher. In the year leading up to the raid, opioid overdoses in the Twin Cities had quadrupled, fueled by the cheap, plentiful pills flowing through the network Judge Nurelme protected. Homicides had spiked to record highs as gangs fought for territory sanctioned by the overseer. The fallout tears through the institutions of Minnesota. The corruption went deeper than just one judge. Within a month, 12 police officers are indicted for accepting bribes to look the other way. The police chief resigns in disgrace, and a local mayor faces federal obstruction charges for ordering police to stand down during the hotel siege. But in the silence that follows, the city begins to heal. In the 6 months following Operation Metro Surge, overdose deaths dropped by 40%. The shooting of the ICE agent, once a flashpoint for riots, becomes a grim reminder of the dangers lurking in plain sight. The trial of Judge Nurelme and Attorney Nur becomes the spectacle of the decade. But as the gavel falls on their life sentences, the message is clear: institutions can rot from the inside. The people we trust to uphold the law can be the very ones breaking it. And while the raid is over, the lesson remains. You can hide the money. You can print the